Hello, everybody. Once again, you are listening to the W4K What We Wish We Knew podcast, the podcast that talks about what we wish we knew when we were younger and what we wish we could know now that we're older. I'm your host, John Skye. I've got my trusty co-host, Monica O'Keefe, with me, and today we're going to talk about what we wish we knew about becoming a parent. Post in the comments your tips and tricks for first-time parents, or tell us your funny parenting story. We're getting started right now. Okay, so Monica.
Yes.
You got to choose the podcast topic this time.
Hell yeah.
And I think it's a fantastic idea. Obviously, we're both parents. We each have a kid. And I think that there was a lot of learning and growing and things that occurred.
Yes.
But what is it about this topic that made you want to talk about it so much?
Because it's the biggest topic that involves all the things that I wish I would have known before going into it, and also continue to wish I knew things as we are, becoming parents of little kindergartners that are moving into like elementary school and growing up so fast.
Yeah. And so when you became a parent, now some of the topics that we're going to discuss, they might get a little bit personal. Were you planning on becoming a parent when you became a parent?
When I became a parent, yes, we had discussed, his dad and I, okay, well, we wouldn't be opposed if this were to happen. So we just threw precautions to the wind and just, it happened. But
you just kind of went for it.
Yeah. But beforehand, I wasn't really sure if I did ever, want to have kids or be a mom. Just, the world is crazy. But yeah.
Was there something, so when you decided that you wanted to become a parent, did you have any fears? What fears were there?
Yeah. I think if you're not afraid, expecting a kid to come, then with you. Just kidding.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So name a few, what were some of your fears that concerned you, that you were just stressed about?
Well, damn, all of it. Just traumatizing my child, that's a big one. I don't want to do that. But learning it will happen regardless.
Yeah.
Little things. But yeah, just being the mom that he needed me to be, not the mom that I expected a mom should look like. And that was a huge learning experience for me, because I did have an expectation of, what a mom does, what they look like, who I need to be. And I wasn't fitting that when I first became a mom. But then later on, I realized, well, but none of that matters. I just need to show up the way he needs me to show up. And that's being a mom. So.
Yeah. So my biggest fear, so I had wanted to have a girl.
Oh.
And then when we were told that we were having a boy, I was like, oh my gosh, I had more fear.
Oh yeah.
And
I get that.
Yeah. And I think the reason for it was because I'm sitting here thinking I'm supposed to teach this little guy how to do guy things.
Mm-hmm.
And I hung out with women most of my life. My friends were women.
Mm-hmm.
I had one or two guy friends. I didn't do sports. I didn't do high risk things until I was way later in life when I joined the military. I was pretty much just kicking back, relaxing. I mean, I play the violin, I like to sing. So I'm how am I supposed to teach my boy how to catch or throw? And I can barely catch or throw. Now, that doesn't mean I can't. I wouldn't be playing in baseball or football.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the expectation of who you thought a father should be.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
It's just having that going into it. This is what I need to be. I need to be into sports because that's what I think a father is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's not at all.
Right. And so there was other fears too that not necessarily compounded with that. They just went hand in hand or side by side with it, because there's stereotypes, right? There's always the concern of how do you balance being a dad and be a part of your kid's life at the same time as providing, because and sometimes I do have to face that reality. My wife and also my son's mom, so two different women, they both play a very active, nurturing role in his life, and they both work also. But what ends up happening is they get to see him a lot more and spend a lot more time, because a lot of the things that they'll do are inside the home. And a lot of things that I'm doing when I'm at home are fixing things inside the home, but
Yeah.
where
You're
a
still
child couldn't
working.
be.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I might be using power tools or I'm making a mess. And sometimes I invite him out there, but it's like, how do you make sure that you have that balance of, fitting that gender role? Because I think gender roles do exist to a certain
Oh, yeah.
extent,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And how do you make sure that you're providing for your son while also not ignoring him, so that you can take care of the rest of the house and the family,
Yes.
right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I get it.
So being you're a single parent now, so how do you balance that? Like, when you have him, how do you make sure that you're taking care of the house and also being present?
It's hard. It's so hard. And like I learned that like when I'm in this mode of trying to get SHIT done. And you're welcome, John.
Thank you.
Yes.
Less editing later.
Yes. And I have that, like I have to go. I have to make dinner. I have to clean, and he's trying to get my attention. I get really irritated. And so I've realized that I have to either be all in with him and like clear my thoughts of what I need to be doing, or like it just our time doesn't go well. So I just try and get everything done when he's at his dad's house that I need to get done. And so when he's with me, I can just kind of focus in on him more. But it is rough. It's
Yeah.
hard.
So something that I wish people would know. I am now getting it. I understand it, but I think it's very hard for certain people to adjust to, is that your kid's going to be fine. You're not always going to be present, even when they're there.
You're gonna FUCK it up.
It's going to happen. And on top of that, sometimes you got to also switch that role and say, the house is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So there's times where I've had projects that I needed to do, and my kid is like, hey, daddy, will you come play with me? And it's like, dude, I have so much to do. You know what? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because one day he's not going to ask.
He's gonna be a grown man.
Yeah. He's going to be grown. He's not going to
Yeah.
want to play.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to have a pile of dirty laundry. It's okay to not have the dishes done. It's okay to have, I've got 2 dogs, so the dining room floor looks like it has muddy footprints half the time when it's winter. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Because to me, what's more important is, am I able to live and enjoy those experiences with my kid? Now, there's going to be times, if the water heater breaks, I might be committed for the day to fixing that or something. But I think it's very challenging to balance those. But I think we just need to tell ourselves it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So going on with that same kind of topic of like struggles, because this podcast is all about what we wish we knew.
Which involves struggle.
Which involves struggles.
You gotta struggle to learn.
Like you don't want to learn something unless you want to make, to me, like you're learning stuff because you either want the knowledge just to say you know it, or you want to improve your processes, efficiencies, your life, make things better for you or your kids or family. And so I was always told, like before I became a parent, well, there's no manual to help take care of kids. There's no instruction book, right? Well, like that's a load of hooey, right? You can go to like Barnes and Noble or
there's
Amazon,
1,000 books,
and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books.
Yeah.
So I know this is putting us on the spot, and I can go first if you want. But what are some like things that new parents, you just want to like feed them advice?
Oh man, which is the worst. Like no new parent wants advice, but
secretly I think they do.
I just feel like you never know. But I think with me, I struggled with severe postpartum anxiety, and I had no idea. But I was just over the top with everything. I didn't take my son out until he was 3 months. I would just like hibernate with him in the room. And even that, like putting him in the car was terrifying to me. And I couldn't go to the playground with him because I was just like so anxious. But no one, I guess I wasn't like vocal about how I was feeling. But I wish that someone would have maybe told me, hey, go to your doctor, make sure that you're okay postpartum and that your hormones are balanced and that, you're good to go. Or like, hey, this doesn't seem Like, are you okay? Like,
Right.
So I don't know if that's specific advice, but just I guess making sure that as a mom, like you are okay after the birth, and it's okay if you're not. Like your
Yeah.
body just went through a friggin' major change. So
Right. And that's something that a lot of men, we don't even like consider, because to us, we're like, what is your deal?
Yeah.
Like what? But we don't realize that you can't control the chemical reactions that are occurring inside your body
like so
that are
much has
making you
gone on.
feel that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's super important I think it's important to have that advice. It's like one of the most important things that I think a woman could do after giving birth is check in.
Yeah.
Have a mental health checkup.
Yep. No one talks about it. It's crazy.
No one does. I mean, you might if you're on listening to a birthing podcast,
or maybe like our podcast,
or like our podcast. Yeah, exactly. So one piece of advice that I've given to dads, like everywhere, is don't listen to all of the people who say you have a kid and therefore you're going to always be getting peed on when they're a baby. Because like to me, it just blew my mind that I was watching mothers with their like third or fourth child and the boy is still peeing into the air while they're changing the diaper. And I'm like, why don't you just take a baby wipe and throw it over his thingy, his peer, and then you don't get peed on,
Yeah.
So that was
just
like
logical.
It seems like it's such a simple piece of advice, but it resolves so much frustration. And then, so for a little bit when we had Michael, we had his changing pad and it just, they come with like covers that you can wash and stuff, right? Well, I decided to go and buy, like the little puppy pee pads. I bought a ton of those, like 100 of them. And I would put them on his changing pad. And then that way, if he did make a mess, I could just throw that away. I didn't have to go and do laundry every other day.
About efficiency for John.
It is. It's about efficiency.
Yes.
And so but it resolves a lot of like mental frustration. I think what happens is sometimes parents are frustrated, not at their kid per se, but
overwhelming.
They're just overwhelmed with all the things that they're supposed to be doing and the new messes that they have to fix and the new care that they have to provide, that they just don't know, hey, someone's already like life hacked this for you. You just got to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And so like the other one that goes hand in hand with this advice was, in your house, if you can, have a burp rag within arm's reach always. Like just wear a burp rag bib.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, you're fine.
No one cares. Because they
burp
will
rag shirt.
Yes, inevitably though, they will puke when there's no rag to be found.
Yeah.
Right? But if you put one like on your coffee table, on the back of the couch, on the armrest, on the dining room table, on the kitchen counter, anytime you've got that kid, if he pukes, you're ready to go. You can wipe it up. And then you're not like, oh my gosh, where do I go? I just got puked on. There's puke everywhere. And if I touch anything, then it's going to be everywhere even more.
Yeah.
And so like, to me, I was all about like, how can I make my processes more efficient? And what it did is it actually made me be calmer when I was doing dad stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was ready. I was prepared. And so talking about preparation, did you do any, like in high school, did you do like childhood development or anything like that? What are your thoughts on those programs? I think they're silly too. Tell me why you think they're silly and I'll tell you why I think they're silly.
Well, I think they're silly because first of all, you're a high school student. Second of all, there's no way to prepare a person to be a parent other than becoming a parent.
Right.
So that's my.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
So what I noticed when I was in high school, and they're still doing it, is there's a time in that like early childhood development class where maybe they've got a daycare at the school that they're helping take care of the kids, or there comes a time when they have to take that like fake baby home that cries and stuff. And the problem that I have with that is what they're trying to do, their end goal isn't just to show this is how hard of work it is to take care of kids. What they're really showing is don't go and have kids because it's difficult. And it drives me nuts because the whole purpose of the class is so at the day that person takes that kid home, they should be prepared. They should be ready to at least take care of it for a few days.
Yeah.
And instead they're just scaring them into not having children. And then, I watched some comedian that's coming to Utah. I can't remember his name. He's coming in a few weeks. And in one of his stand-ups in a different state, he asks someone if they have kids, and she's like, "Well, no, I'm a lesbian." And he's like, "Okay, well,
But do you have
lesbians
kids?
can still have
Yeah.
kids." And my first wife is living proof of that.
Yeah.
My ex-wife. But the person called them crotch demons. She called children crotch demons. And I'm like, this isn't the right attitude. What we should be doing is teaching these kids, hey, if you do end up pregnant, it's not the end of the world, even if it wasn't planned. There are resources. Let's show you how to use those resources to survive and to make it through having a baby. And I think if they had taught us, hey, like, yeah, you're going to have some sleepless nights, but you're also going to have like 20 hours in the day where that baby is just asleep. It's basically a football.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just sits next to you swaddled up. Now I understand that there's some babies who have colic and, there's some health issues and things that might not always be the case, but you sleep when they sleep. At least that should be the goal, right? Try to sleep when they sleep and go back to the first things we mentioned. Your house can be a mess. It's fine.
Yeah.
As long as you can provide some food, like it doesn't take that much. And people think, oh, well, it's really expensive, right? And it can be costly. But if you think about it, if you're capable of breastfeeding, the cost is your nutrition as a mother, right? And if you're using formula, I could buy a $30 thing of formula that lasted almost 30 days. So it's like $1 a day to feed the kid. So like drink 3 less coffees a month and you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't like those classes, because they're really discouraging caring for children. And then that ends up taking you down a different route where a lot of people just think, well, I'm not ready. I can't do this. And then they go and have an abortion where maybe they do want to have kids later. They just didn't want to have kids in that moment because they were taught it was really, really hard.
I mean,
and it can be.
It is really, really hard. And
Right.
I think there's a lot of other factors too, like who the father is and,
Sure.
and, how that relationship is going to be, if it's going to be turmoil, if it's, there's just a lot of things I think that go around that decision. So I'm kind of on the fence. Like I see where you're coming from, but also like don't run out and have kids at 16 years old.
You shouldn't be just like going out being like, I got this. No, absolutely.
John said it was easy.
Yeah. But I do think that we need to get rid of the stigma of having children is a burden.
Yeah.
And look at it as having children is an awesome experience.
It really is.
And if you prepare for it, I mean, it's not like you suddenly just have a baby. Like in those childhood development classes, you suddenly just have a baby that you just took home. But like as a new mother, like you had this thing grown inside of you for 7 to 9 months. Hope as long as it wasn't too preemie, right? And as a father, like you have time to start saying, okay, what can I do to become a better dad and a better supporter for the mother of my child? But if we don't teach that that's even a possibility, then we end up just having people clinging to what they think is their only hope instead of realizing you have options, you have choices.
Yeah.
At least now. Who knows where things will go later.
That's true.
And I'm on the fence with it too, because on the one hand, like I value life, right? But on the other hand, I also have to say, is this person going to end up killing their child?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's murder outside of the womb because they didn't know how to take care of it or anything like that, right?
That was a deep one.
I know. I know. So I'm kind of on the fence on that regard, but that's a topic for a different day.
It is. Yeah, it's a good one though.
It is. And we could talk about that later. But so what are some of the like awesome things?
Oh my gosh. Everything. Like just like the love that you have for this person and seeing them grow and watching them develop and becoming who they are. And like, I don't know. It's just the coolest thing ever. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So some of the things that I like, it's really cool to like see how my kid can grow and learn things that are either things I taught him, or it's like the other day he asked if I go and play catch with him, and I'm like, sure, like let's go. And he wanted to throw the football around.
Mhm.
My 5-year-old throws a perfect spiral
That's awesome.
every time. And I'm
How's
just,
that for a non-sports dad, huh?
oh, I just bumped my mic.
You're shocked.
Yeah. Like I'm like, dude, you throw this like really good. And to the point, he's like, Dad, let me show you how to do this.
Hey, let me teach you.
And he starts showing me, and I'm like, I can't do it.
That's awesome.
I mean, it doesn't help that the football is only like this big.
That's so cute.
It's like the size of my entire hand, right?
Yeah.
But
I can't do it.
but he's just so like, he's so smart, and he comes up with these like crazy ideas.
And they're like so funny.
Oh yeah.
So funny. I love it.
Yeah. Like today, I guess, my wife was taking him to a swim lesson, and she's like, oh, darn it, I missed the turn.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's okay, Mimi, just back up. And she's like, I can't. He's like, well, then we'll just turn here. And she's like, was there a road? And he's like, no, there was like some cliffs and rocks, but I mean, we could take it.
Uh-huh.
So, it's just a funny thing.
They're
and you're
so
like,
funny.
In his head, it's completely logical.
Yeah.
He's not being sarcastic.
He's
or
like,
making
makes sense.
a joke.
Just turn.
He's like, just turn right here, drive over the rocks, drive
He's like,
off the cliff.
Lady,
we'll
you're
be
so
fine."
dumb.
Yeah. But, that's when you remember those TV shows of kids say the darndest things.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh.
It's so funny.
And they throw you under the bus.
But that's, right? But it's just so funny to see their little mind start to grow and grasp onto things, and like, oh my gosh. And the innocence of all of it is just,
and
oh.
how they interact with other kids, and how they like choose who their friends are going to be. And it's really cool to see and kind of grow with them. So
I love that you said that. Grow with them.
Yeah.
Big one.
Because you have to, right?
But also letting your kid know, because I make mistakes so much. And I it's so important for me to let him know that I'm not perfect. And that I will make mistakes, and it has nothing to do with him. Like, I will get mad. Sometimes, some days I might yell, and I make that mistake. But as long as like there's a repair between us, and I let him know that like, hey, Mom's not perfect. I'm learning just like you are. And I tell him, I wasn't a mom before I had you. So I'm learning how to be a mom.
Right.
Just
yeah.
Take it easy. Just kidding.
And like every phase, the other thing that the other thing I like about becoming a parent, not just suddenly being instantly a parent. That's why I like to use the word becoming, because you're always becoming a parent, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm still becoming a parent.
Oh, yeah.
The difference is I'm no longer like I'm an expert at being a parent to a 1-year-old. I'm not to a 5-year-old. And by the time he turns 5, or by the time he turns 6, it's like, great. And I'm becoming a parent to a 6-year-old.
But it's so true. It is so true, because they change so much. So you're just always having to constantly, okay, how do I deal with this new thing that has come up? Like,
right. Right. How do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? What do you do to adapt? And what I've found by just kind of kicking back and letting things roll is like, sometimes that is the best way.
Yeah.
You just have to take a step back and roll the dice and see how it happens.
And that's hard.
And it's hard because, especially for me, like I'm a really controlling type person. I am like borderline on the spectrum. I don't like it when people touch me. I don't like and so I get cringy when things are out of my control. But it's fun to just try it.
Yeah.
Take a step back and see what my kid does without me having to parent him. And what I found is, if I'm not micromanaging his day-to-day activities, our relationship is so much better.
Man, I need to be better with that.
Right? Real. Like, and my wife, and she'll be watching this, I'm sure, and listening and rolling her eyes at me. But she took, child development classes. That was kind of like her focus in college was, she wanted to, her like goal was to be like a preschool teacher. And she did get to do that for a bit.
That sounds like a nightmare to me.
But yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
Me too. I prefer teaching like older kids. Yeah. But what happens is she does try to like micromanage some of his activities, and she stresses about it.
I do that too.
It's such a huge stress, because she's like, but he's got to learn how is he going to be spiritually or with his education or socially or physically? Like, and so what ends up happening is like we're running him all over the place and we're wearing ourselves out trying to get him to play baseball, soccer, swimming, and also do online school and also do, have time for friends and also do his chores.
Yeah.
And it's like,
but then you can't show up as your best self as a parent because you're like,
because you're so stressed about trying to accomplish things that you forget it's not just the end, it's the journey. So like,
beautiful.
So my approach, I know, right?
Yeah,
it's not the end, it's the journey. I'll put it on my shirt. And so what I'll end up doing is like, if I pick him up and my wife is, let's say, out running errands, like her approach is like, he comes home, he has dinner, he does school.
Oh, and that's so stressful because they don't freaking listen.
Well, right. And here's the thing, like, do you want to do that? Like, if you just got home from, I realize people think daycare is just like this play group, right? But he has to deal with other children and adults and learn their rules and what they like or don't like. And he has to behave and he has to be disciplined.
Hard for a little guy.
And it's hard. So it's kind of like them going to work. Imagine if you came home from work.
Daycare briefcase.
I know, right? So imagine if you came home from work and the first thing you were required to do was eat. But let's say you just had your break like an hour and a half ago. You had your final break for the day. You had a snack. You're good. You don't want to eat. You just want to come home and do nothing. You just want to vegetate. Maybe you want to go and tinker with whatever hobby you have. Maybe you just want to watch some TV, And so I'll let him come home and for like 15, 20 minutes, he just gets to veg out. Yeah. And if he comes up with an idea and says, "Hey, Dad, you want to go do this?" It's like, yeah.
That sounds great.
Let's go do it.
My son's like, we're playing. I'm like,
yeah.
Constantly play.
Yeah.
I don't want to play after work, but.
Right. And yeah, and he'll still fight. Like, he doesn't always want to do school or we tried to do piano lessons. He's just a little bit too young for that still. But I found like if you give the kids some breathing room, you actually create breathing room for yourself because you're not fighting with them and constantly battling to try to get them to do what you want them to do. Yes, because we got to remember, like,
they're little people.
They're little people, but they're not little adults. They're kids. Everything to them is a learning environment.
Yeah.
And everything they do, even if it takes the same amount of time, it feels longer for them. Right. So I'm of the impression that anytime have you noticed, like, as we get older, time seems like it goes faster,
yes,
right?
I hate it.
But what I found is I have been able myself to slow down time in a sense of...
Are you a wizard?
Yes, but only mentally. Okay. So my mental wizardry is what I found is when we were younger, everything seems like it took longer because everything was a new experience.
Okay.
And as we get older, we tend to have less new experiences. And I think if we can continue to find new experiences, things will slow down a little bit for us.
You just unlocked a whole other thing in my mind.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
What's that?
Well, just like it's so true. Like I have the biggest struggle with time. I have got ADHD for days. And so like time does not make sense to me. I don't get it. I suck at it. But that makes sense too. Like, oh, well, yeah, I totally, like, I don't do anything new to stimulate my mind. I just am constantly thinking about 5 million things at once and, like, I'm busy.
Right.
So I wake up and go to sleep. It feels.
Yeah, exactly. And so.
I love that.
So as adults, we have to do the same thing. We have to find ways to create new experiences for ourselves. And a great way to do that is if you have a child, do things with them. Because a lot of what they do nowadays, it is like the toys that they have today are way cooler than the toys we had.
Actually, I don't know. 90s toys were friggin' cool.
I mean, it depends on what it was, right? Like, it was cool when like something really new and innovative came out. Like when I got this, I think it was Tyco made this. It was called like the Tyco Ricochet remote control car that could be on all sides and flip around. It was really, really cool when it came out. And the battery would last like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But now you could have one of those cars and play around with it for like an hour or two.
I get it. I know.
No. Yeah. But my point is, like, there's a lot of cool toys and the cost of the coolness has come down
Mm.
comparatively to what it was when we were children. I mean, if you think about it, like to have a basic like 6 or 8-bit Super Nintendo system was like
Hell yeah.
$400.
Yeah.
And if you were to have those same quality of graphics by today's standard, you're like, it's like a free app
Can I
on
get
my
it for 30?
phone,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Can I get it for $30
Yeah.
or whatever? And so, anyway, I think it's cool that, we have kids and we have this opportunity to learn and grow with them. And but to get us through it, it is helpful to find tips and tricks along the way.
Mhm.
Whether that be, if your kid whines and fusses because you have to, when you're wiping them, it's with a cold wipey instead of a warm one. If it means you got to save up $10 or $15 to go buy a wipey warmer,
Yeah.
like make your life easier.
Yeah.
And I realize that for some people,
I wouldn't like that.
right?
That's uncomfortable.
I know. So, but I realize, like, for some people, like, financially speaking, that's not always the option. But then that's what I want to bring up. Did you know that most cities or states have local resources to help with things like diapers? Even here in Utah, if you're like overwhelmed and you're just like, I don't have anyone to turn to, I don't know what to do, I need like a breather for a couple hours without my kid, there's places you can go for free. Drop your kid off. They will take care of him for a few hours. No questions asked. You can do it to run errands. You can do it to have a mental health break, whatever the case may be. And then that way you can feel refreshed and rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Did you know that exists?
I didn't know that. And I would love it if we could post links to those resources.
I will find the links and I will post them. And some of them are city-based, meaning like they're in a specific city sponsored, it's a nonprofit organization, or some of them are like state programs.
That's awesome.
And so a lot of people don't know that. Now, there is a caveat to that. The caveat is you can't be in the middle of a mental health episode and drop your kid off for the first time. What you need to do is go, okay, right now I'm good. Let's go and get this planned out. You go and meet with them. They ask some questions. You fill out some forms. And then that way, when that day does come where you need that mental health break, it's already set up. So that way you're not stressed and frustrated trying to get it all taken care of then. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have as adults is how do we man up or woman up and say, I'm going to need help in the future. Let's go take care of this now.
Or like just, being okay with asking for help and taking care of ourselves. I feel like I lose myself a lot in like full-time work and showing up for Kian, my son, and like getting all these things done. And then at the end of the day, like I feel so depleted, but it's just hard. We have to remember to take care of us too and prioritize our well-being.
Exactly. And it takes care of their well-being at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have, when I was growing up, I had parents that were very loud. And it's because I had two older brothers who were rambunctious, right? And they're like way older than I am by like, I don't know, 13, 14 years, somewhere around there. And so my parents' way of parenting them was different than how they would parent us. But some of that like bled in and mixed. So there was a lot of yelling, a lot of arguing, a lot of like you're always defending your actions as to why you did something instead of just, you've heard the term don't cry over spilled milk. Well, we cried over spilt milk. And it's like, why? Like it's one thing if you spilled milk on a laptop. It's another if you just spilled it on the table, like wipe it up, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can find those moments to self-acknowledge, decompress, your kids can decompress and see that they don't have to yell back, right? Now, you're not going to have perfect children, no matter what you do.
No, and you're not going to be the perfect parent.
Right.
Either.
Because they're also independent. Like, we're relatively calm around my son, but sometimes he still yells, cries, and fusses. In fact, probably every single day, there's some moment where he's upset.
I don't want to wear my socks.
Right.
Just the end of the world.
Like
things
lately
that are
it's
so
been the
fun.
shoes.
Yeah.
Like we're like, hey, go put on your shoes. He's like, okay. And then we're like in the kitchen preparing something. We're like, are your shoes on? He's like, yeah. And then you go and look and you're like, no, they're sitting next to you on the armrest. Put your shoes on. They don't even tie.
Yeah.
There's no like just they're slip-ons. Slip them on. Right?
Yeah.
But that's also kind of part of the fun of being a parent is you get to have moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, this kid, he is just like me.
Yes.
What have I done?
Yep.
And I worry because, for a while we were trying to have another kid, didn't end up working, but I'm like, man, like I have a great kid. Do I want to try around too and have it not go as sweet and take the gamble, you know? Or you end up having some people who like their first kid is way rough, right? And they roll the dice again and they're like, oh my gosh, where was this kid
bravery.
the first time?
Yeah, for
you know?
Sure. Yep.
And you're like, what? If your kid was like that the first time, you really were taking
I know,
a gamble.
that's courage. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Have 2 of those things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's when some people refer to them as crotch demons.
Yeah.
But it's,
there you go, tying it back.
I get it.
Yeah.
It can happen. It's a thing. But anyway, going on, what are some other things, like if you could like give parental advice or even switch it, if you could give your child advice now?
Ooh, time machine.
Time machine. What advice would you give? And I'll let you choose either one or both.
Oh man.
Or none.
What advice? Oh, my mind just went like a million places. I think like my very first thought, I don't know if it's like advice, but just like you can make mistakes. Like that's the whole reason we're here and how you grow and who you become. That's how we learn, is we make mistakes. So just being, embrace that and embrace your failures and know that it's not a reflection of who you are, or it's nothing permanent. It's just, it's life. Push through it. Okay. Fall, get up, keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I could give my son advice, he won't probably listen to this until he's a teenager, right? Because he's too young to care. But the advice that I would give, so I really, for a long time, I hated school. And I was good at it. I just hated it. And I think primarily I hated it because I just felt like everyone was a bunch of dummies. The people I went to school with were dumb. The teachers were dumb. Like everyone was just dumb. And I'm like, how are you all getting through life and functioning, right? But then I changed my mentality. I met someone when I got one of my first, like, not real jobs, but it was a more steady income, higher pay job. I was still a teenager. I was in high school. I was pushing shopping carts at the grocery store, but someone said, hey, like, stop looking at school as your identity. Look at it as this is your job for the day. And then when you're done, you can forget all about it unless you have some homework. But for the most part, just ignore it. Like, move on. You've got other things to do. This is just a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
And so when I started to think about school that way, it was really easy for me to get through a day because I'm like, oh, there's only like 2 more hours left to work, and then I'd go to my other job, which was real work, and it would make me appreciate school.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, well,
I want to be here. I want to go to school.
Here it's like I'm hot. I'm pushing shopping carts in the parking lot. You're sweating. It's the not quite summer yet, but it's hot in May.
All perspective.
Yeah. And so that way you can kind of look at it from different perspectives and say, all right, well, is this my identity? Is this who I am? Or is this just a piece of what I need to do for the day?
Yeah.
And that ties in with, like, my teachers would tell me, like, hey, school is preparing you for the real world. And I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
What school is doing is letting me get some education about what the world outside of it is. But the real world, when you're a kid, well, think about it. Like right now, the real world for my 5-year-old is
terrifying.
Well, his real world is he goes to daycare. He comes home. He has some food. He has some swim lessons. He watches some TV. He goes to bed. That's his real world. He doesn't need to know the real world of what he's going to be when he's 32 years old, because that world doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Like what we do today, like just look around the room. People can't tell. I mean, you can if you understand videos, but like there's a bunch of lights in the room. There's green screens everywhere. There's microphones. There's cables all over the place. There's nothing in my high school education that said, hey, we're going to have a huge advance in technology and make it so you can buy really high-end looking cameras for like $50. Oh, and you don't even have to go out to get them. We'll bring them to your door.
Yeah. So cool.
Overnighting it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay a premium like $30 to have it shipped.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no real world for if you're 16 and looking for what you're going to do when you're 25 or 26. Your real world is the world that you're in.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice is like your
Son,
real
put on
world
your
is your existence. What's that?
Put on your perspectacles.
Oh, I like that.
There you go. That's your advice.
Everything. Yeah. Put on your perspectacles.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
I don't know.
Did you just make it up?
I can't claim that. I think I heard it somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah. So I
Your
think
new tattoo.
What?
It's going to be your new tattoo.
Oh, yes. Could you imagine?
Oh my God.
Like
in the shape of glasses.
In the shape of glasses, and it says perspectacles
yeah.
underneath it, and people are gonna be like, "What is that?" I don't know. It was a dumb choice.
I don't know.
I made a bad choice.
What is it? It's a regret.
It's a regret.
Yeah.
And on the next podcast about tattoos.
Yes.
Because we both have tattoos.
Regrets.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't regret my tattoo.
Yours is freaking cool.
Yeah, mine is cool.
I love it.
Maybe one day we will do a tattoo.
Okay, because I want one. Maybe I'll get one just for the podcast.
Yeah. Well, you already have some tattoos, though.
I know, but I want another one.
Yeah, me too. I don't really want to consider it like a separate one. I just want to continue on what I have.
Yeah.
Like my tattoo is finished, quote unquote, but like there's more that it could be.
Yeah. We digress. Tattoos are cool.
Okay. Yeah, tattoos are cool. So going back to being a parent, so with some of the fears that you did have, even if it's none that we've talked about, like what are some things that you did to overcome those fears?
Open my mouth and talk about it. Like start sharing what I was experiencing internally and doing my research, I think, and then just like really giving myself some grace and compassion. Like I was so stuck on taking care of my baby and doing it like the way that he needed, and I just was a mess. But then taking a step back and being like, whoa, it's okay to make mistakes and you can learn through this and you don't have to do everything perfectly and he's going to be fine. So
that's sweet.
Yeah.
So,
that's sweet.
No,
you don't. It's funny. Sorry.
No, I think it all kind of comes back to the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to take a step back, you got to take a breath, and you got to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate. So I asked my older brother, who he's got, I think 4 kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I hope he doesn't have a 5th one and I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Tara, Ann, Nick, Audrey, William. That's 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
wait, no.
Tara, Ann, Nick, Audrey, William. Yeah. Yeah. 4.
5.
No, Tara, Ann.
Nick, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like Tara, Ann. Okay, sorry.
No. Tara, Ann is one name.
Got it.
I asked him like who he used for his pediatrician with all his kids, and he recommended a doctor. And that doctor on our first appointment gave me and Danelle a book, and I can't remember the exact name, but it's got 411 on it. And it's like a narrow book that's like thick, like a dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the answer to everything. If you're like there was a day he had like weird, like flaky skin. So I looked that up in the table of contents.
Mm-hmm. The baby dictionary.
And it's all, if it is this, don't stress. It's because of this.
Yeah.
However, if it looks like this,
you
call your doctor.
Yeah.
It's still not something that you have to run out to and stress about, but it's something that he'll want to take a look at, right? And so it was the 411. I mean, it really was.
Yeah.
And it was this really cool book. And I'm like, man, they did write a manual.
They did. The parenting manual. You found it.
But it only worked. Like you can't just use it like a dictionary. You do have to like read something.
Yeah.
So that way you can kind of see how it's laid out. So my step was, okay, man up, understand that I don't know what it takes to be a parent. I'm going to read a book.
Yes.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
And I did it. And I think my kids turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm still winging it as a parent,
Same.
but you know, it's an adventure. It's a ride. It's a lot of fun. And some of the fears that I had, the other thing that I did is I had a mentor who I worked with on a daily basis. He was a new dad. He was a dad in his older years like I was. And I asked him, like, I'm like, look, I'm stressed about this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And he's like, yeah, I get that. Like I'm like, what do you do with a 1-year-old? Like, how do you be a part of their life?
Yeah.
Besides just staring at them. And he's like, well, you just do like kid things. Like maybe you sit on the floor and you roll a ball back and forth to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just kind of crawl around and push it. And sometimes he'll ignore you and sometimes he won't.
Get into their world.
And I'm like, well, what do you feed? Like, I don't make food for myself. I'm still a fast food junkie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, like, what did you like as a kid? Like, don't overthink it. Kids can live on PB&J and spaghetti and raviolis and mashed potato, you know, and it's like a lot of that stuff you can buy. It's instant.
Yeah.
Like if it's not the healthiest choice, but
get them fed.
But put food in them.
Yeah.
They'll be content. So yeah, I don't really feel all that bad when I give my kid chicken nuggets for dinner, you know?
Yeah.
And talking to another male who was in a similar boat as far as, you know, age and when he started his family, I think that helped me overcome a lot of my fears.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, this is not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
And like, if I ever had an issue, like I haven't seen him in probably like 2 years because he moved, but I could call him up right now and he'd give me advice.
That's cool.
You know? And I think as parents, like it's important too, if you're a dad, like moms tend to naturally, a lot of moms will form groups with other moms, but dads don't. We're like, I don't know, what are we supposed to do? Like take our kids all out to a play date?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So, you know, be there, be present, ask questions, ask for help, and tell people to go kick rocks if they give you flack about it.
And yeah, true. And parenting is the best. Well,
it is.
Just having children, like it is the best. It's a whole. It just, I don't know. You have words.
Yeah.
My life is just so much better.
It's better, and as long as you look at it, you know, it's cliche, but an elephant can be eaten one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
If you take little bites through your parenting, you will be fine.
Breathe.
Right? Just breathe.
Yep.
So, cool. Is there anything else you want to touch on with this topic?
I think we touched on a lot of what I was hoping to get out there today. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, everyone, thanks for watching,
Thank you.
we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.